Failure and success. It's something we all worry about, and this week on InFocus Recouched, we're going to take a look at what success really is in terms of career, family, and even in the bedroom.
Wow, okay, well now we're taking notice. First up though, we're going to take a look more specifically at failure, at broken dreams. Now that might seem like a bit of a downer, but it's actually more useful than you might think.
Awesome. Let's check this out.
Well, it's great to catch up with you, Andy, here on the campus of Avondale College. Beautiful campus, and right in the middle of this arts festival. Are you feeling the energy that's on the campus right now?
When you're a writer, you're usually by yourself.
Right.
So to be around other people is actually a nice change of pace. We're full of dreamers here, young people with visions and dreams in their head.
So you have obviously written a number of articles. You've written a few books. Your most recent is called Paper God. What what narrative are you telling in that book?
Well, Paper God is a story about my own dream. I took a huge risk about 10 years ago. You know, it's like climbing Mount Everest barefoot. We were the second largest magazine launch in American history. And when you put yourself out there, you learn a lot about yourself.
Well, absolutely. What kind of magazine were you launching, and how'd it go?
You know, the magazine is called The Front Porch, and it celebrated ordinary people as opposed to celebrity culture and political culture. It was a magazine about bringing people onto the front porch with stories and contests, and the product was one that connected very well with people.
And I understand it won awards. There was a lot of attention around this magazine.
Yeah.
And when you say it was the second biggest magazine launch in history, what do you mean by that?
Well, we were carried in newspapers like Parade magazine in the U.S. You may have magazines like that comparable in the United States. So you have 100 newspapers sign up. You're overwhelmed. You feel like this is the best of times. And I think what entrepreneurs learn is how much money it takes to ride out that climate.
Wow, absolutely.
And we needed about $15 million and didn't quite have that much.
Only had 14, right?
Yeah.
Just for our viewers' sake, Parade magazine is a Sunday insert that goes into a lot of newspapers, including my favorite, The Washington Post, so I'm very familiar with it. So you start this out, you get in Parade magazine, which is a huge deal. It's a huge deal, and you're getting exposure all across the United States, and then what happens? You know,
dot-com crash, too much faith, too much confidence that you're going to make it. I think you're so full of vision and confidence when you've had some success in publishing. And it was a story of a spectacular failure in the sense that you learn a lot about how much money matters when you're pursuing dreams, and a dream can end up becoming a nightmare when it's what you wake up and go to bed thinking about.
Sure. Yeah. Now, you know, there are many books about success. You know, we can sort of go through it, and I can see why somebody would want to read a book about success. We all want to be successful, but you know, Andy, I know how to fail by myself. I'm very good at it.
Good.
So why would I want to read this book?
Because it's for people who are dads and husbands. And trying to balance their faith, feeling like you want your net to be full of your own personal passions. So you have to ultimately learn, like Jesus said to Peter, you know, do you love me more than these? Which I believe was this lifestyle of fish. And, you know, when I'm pushing my daughter on the swing and realizing she's been saying daddy, daddy over and over again, you feel this sinking feeling that I wanted to give this to my kids, and what they really want is you. And that's a hard-learned lesson, and I feel like, you know, we can share stories and help each other out along the way.
Well, it's very profound, because all of us have that pull, don't we, between our careers and what we want to do, our dreams, and being the sort of person that we want to be. What did you learn going through this really quite amazing story arc? I mean, launching this magazine, getting the success you had, but also finding yourself pulled in directions that were hard to reconcile.
You know, I think a man finds a lot of his identity in what you accomplish, in your performance. So
that's right.
You're seeking to be valued and to not be expendable. And so when you have this success, you feel like it's you as well as your product, and when it crashes, you feel like that's you as well. And you know, that's a tremendously difficult desert experience, but it also reveals, I think, you're sifted by it, and it reveals some of your worst tendencies and your worst weaknesses. But if you can make it through that experience, that wilderness experience, you can come out stronger.
You know, it's interesting. My wife and I were just talking this morning. We're talking about a mutual friend whose parents are very successful in business. And she made an interesting comment. She said, I remember that when we were kids growing up, that kid's mom never came to any school events.
Wow.
And that's sort of a profound, it is a balance. You can't be everything to all people all the time.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, all of us want to do great things, Andy. And what's your message to those of us who have ambitions and we want to go for it, and we want to do great things for our families,
Yes.
for our God, for our church, for our faith, and
Yep.
maybe for ourselves too, and our own egos?
The message is to give up your dreams. And by that I mean to literally place them on the altar of faith. Malachi 1 talks about giving up what you most want to hang on to. In that context with sacrifices. I think if God really wants you to have it, He refines it and He gives it back to you. And it's not supposed to be something you strain and strive for. You know, you mentioned this example of finding balance. Met a woman a couple summers ago, and she grew up in a wealthy home. Her dad would send her a 6-figure check every year for gifts. She said, you know, I never wanted any of that. I didn't want, you know, money and gifts from my dad. All I ever wanted was from him, was time with him. And when she turned 50, she and her dad took a bike ride through the South of America. She said, that was the greatest experience of my life. And she was in tears as she shared, you know, all she wanted as a daughter was time with her dad. And that hits all of us dads and men very, very hard as you realize that, you know, what's most important in life is the time and the focus and the attentiveness you give to your families.
That's interesting. You know, if I could just give an aside, I was just asking my daughter whether she likes living in Australia better than living in the US. Her answer was not about the country, not about the house, not about anything. She said, I like living here better because, Dad, you don't travel as much.
Wow. She has
I used to travel a lot with my work. So,
Yeah, isn't that
so I
the
think
truth?
that illustrates it.
Well, part of my issue is I grew up in a wealthy home.
Okay.
And so we had a lifestyle, a lake on the boats, and a lot of stuff,
Wow,
a couple
lovely.
houses. And, you know, that was where I had fun with my family. And I think to some degree I associated that with being a good dad. And then I realized that, you know, I had a great childhood, not because we had boats and four-wheelers and a couple of houses. I had a great childhood because I had a great dad and a great mom, and it wasn't necessarily because of the stuff.
And so irrespective of the stuff and the lifestyle...
The stuff was
really
fun, you know, but ultimately it's not just that.
Sure, and once again, there's a balance. Well, Andy,
Yep.
it's really great of you to spend time with us. If people want to get a hold of this book, Paper Gods, I guess it's available from Science Publishing Company?
Well, it's available through Adventist Book Center.
Great.
Paper God. You can Google it on Amazon. It's a memoir about faith, failure, and redemption. And it was cathartic for me, and I hope helpful to others that are trying to find that balance.
Yeah, I often joke that there's two ways to learn a lesson. Actually do it the hard way and do it yourself, or listen to other people who've gone through it. I think this book is the kind of way that you want to learn a lesson the easy way.
Absolutely so.
You know what, Dora, that interview really reminds me of something that Jesus said. It went something like, what good is it for a person if they gain the whole world but lose their soul? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like what Andy Nash said, give up your dreams.
Yeah, well...
But I guess before you go chasing success, you really have to get your priorities straight. Your spiritual priorities, your family priorities.
Yeah. Well, I think you've got that right. Hey, we're going to take a short break now, but we'll be back with more InFocus Recouched in just a moment.
Planning your future can be a daunting task. What you want to do, who you want to be, and the road ahead can often be unpredictable. No one really knows what the future holds. Avondale. It's education designed for life.
We live our lives running around, rarely stopping to ask ourselves where we're going and what our final destination is. In the end, our lives become little more than routine. Step beyond and discover a path that offers comfort, love and hope. Visit hopeoffer.com/step beyond or call 1300 300 389 for your free copy today.
We're going to start with some soybeans. Use some chickpeas, an onion, you have a teaspoon of salt, slice some tomatoes, slice some cucumber, some red onion just to give it a bit of freshness. So just make little falafels like this. They just smell amazing. Let's make our tahini dressing. Let's get in some tomatoes, cucumbers, some falafels. Drizzle some of this lovely dressing. All you need to do is roll it up and you've got a delicious lunch for your family.
Hi, welcome back. Now, you're a married man, Kent.
Yeah, guilty.
So you'll need to look out for some tips from these next two segments.
Oh, well, Dora, I think in all fairness, really everyone needs to know more about, what exactly quality time is.
True.
And that's what Trafford Fisher is going to be talking to us about in a minute. But first up, Dr. James Wright explains the importance of sleep for your relational well-being.
I believe we're going to talk today about sleep improving sex appeal.
Absolutely. Yes, you didn't know that, did you?
I
Isn't
didn't.
it great? So
It
you
makes sense, I must
sleep
say.
13 hours a night. Now, in the British Medical Journal, of all prestigious magazines, which all good doctors read every week, comes from London, and it updates us on all the important things that doctors and patients should know. And now, they did a study on a large group of kids, 18 to 31, in that age group. And these people were sleep deprived for 31 hours, no sleep. And at the end of that time, they assessed these people, and they found that they looked tired, haggard, were unhappy, miserable, depressed, didn't look at all attractive, and their sex life was zero. Now, compared to a crowd, similar age group, similar everybody who had a good sleep, they found that they were more beautiful, their skin was nicer, they looked healthy, no puffiness under their eyes, and their sex life improved astronomically.
Well, it would help to have the energy, I'm assuming, too.
Oh yes, you have the energy, yeah. Well, you have Weet-Bix for breakfast every morning. That gives you enough energy for all these good things we talk about. But this is interesting to point out yet again what we've known for years. Ideally, 6 to 8 hours sleep a night, per night, every night, don't scrimp and scrape, does lead to a healthier person.
Yeah.
You feel better, more mentally acute, less depressed.
More serotonin, so it reduces your risk of
more
depression.
serotonin, yeah, the feel-good hormone produced up here. So all these things do happen just with simple lifestyle modifications. It's not rocket science, but when the British Medical Journal runs a special story about it, then it's time to take stock and say, well, gee, maybe some of these simple measures are worth doing. So in talking to yourselves in general, talking to your friends, talking to everybody, in general measures, discuss lifestyle modifications, and sleep 6 to 8 hours per night, every night, is a great idea. So we'd like to remind you once more, if you want more on this topic or any other topic, you log on to docwright.com.au, and there's all the information there, 10,000 topics which will solve your problems.
10,000 topics. You're sure to find what you're after, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Doc Wright.
Trafford, every time I read a book or an article about relationship advice, it always has quality time right at the top.
Yay!
What does quality time actually mean? How does that look?
Gary Chapman put out a book called The 5 Love Languages.
Great
and a lot
book.
of people remember quality time. It's just one of the 5, but it is an important one. I was going to say generally for women, women particularly seem to value quality time, but guys do as well.
Does it look different, like quality time for men, quality time for women?
They might express it somewhat differently. The key is, it's about togetherness, not just proximity.
Okay.
A guy can say, I'm spending time with my wife. I'm here. I'm in the house. He's in the house, but he's not home. He's in his head. He's watching footy.
He's
in the laptop.
garage.
Just recently I heard a lady, she said to me, Trev, my husband, he thinks he's spending time with me. He's on the computer or he's reading the paper and I'm talking to him and he's but he's not with me.
So proximity doesn't count as quality time?
Yes, making a start, but that's not it. You're right. So many guys think, if you ask a guy, are you spending time with your wife? Yes, because he's in the house or he's in the shed, but he's there. No. So but you give your focused attention. And so often ladies will say to their husbands, you are not listening to me. And the guy says, but I am. And I did that once to my wife. I said, this is what you just said. And she wanted to kill me. What she meant to say is, you're not giving me your full attention. That's the key.
Oh, okay.
So if I want to give my wife quality time, I turn towards her and I give her my focused attention. I'm not on my computer. I'm trying to keep out of my head. I'm on my stuff and saying, wow, tell me a bit more about that. Yay! So she gets the message, I'm there, I'm with it. Same with kids, right? It's not just the husband-wife thing. Quality time with kids is focused, invested time, so they know, hey, I'm there fully to hear, to respond, to be there. Okay? So it's not
Beautiful.
shared with computer and laptop and newspaper and sport and the dog. It's I'm there for you.
Maybe they could pretend to have a TV show and interview each other.
They
I
could
feel
try.
like we're spending quality time.
That'll work. Whatever works. It's focused. It's there.
Wonderful. So tell me, how would quality time look for a young child? Is that just playtime out the back, or going on trips, day trips?
It can, but again, it's that focused attention on the child. So it's not just, let's go for a walk down to the park, but we spend time talking to the ducks or, fixing up the pram all the time. We're not there for the child, so it's getting down on the ground, it's in the swing, it's whatever you're doing, you're there, focused. You're sort of investing all your energy and emotional energy, if you like, in this now.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you so much, Trafford.
He makes it so simple, doesn't he? Like, quality time is focused attention.
Focused attention.
Focused attention. Whether it's in your marriage, with your kids, even with your friends, I guess.
Yeah, it's all about the art of listening, eh? Really, really listening.
Yeah, really important. Hey, we'll take a short break now, but don't go away. We'll be back in a minute.
Father, I can't connect the dots through the little that I understand. What words can I say to reach you? How can I know that you are there, listening, hearing, caring? My words are broken, weak, and powerless. But I know your power is limitless. What can I say? Looking back, I can see all those happy memories didn't happen by chance. I wish I knew then what I know now. I should have asked more questions, got more advice. I didn't realize how much you sacrificed. Now I'm a parent. I see everything you did for me. Thank you.
Onions add great sweetness and flavour and a good base to any curry. Going to add some ginger, some garlic. Look at that, nice and chunky. So we've got our spices, gives it kind of a Sri Lankan feel. Add some tomatoes, tomato paste, some honey. Roasted vegetables in these kind of dishes are always great. But we add some creaminess to it. And that dish is now finished, ready to hit the table. I'd recommend you to give it a try, and it's so easy.
Planning your future can be a daunting task. What you want to do, who you want to be, and the road ahead can often be unpredictable. No one really knows what the future holds. Avondale. It's education designed for life.
Hi, welcome back. Now, Dora, I would have to say that this next interview would rank in my probably top 3 InFocus interviews of all time.
Oh, well, I think Reverend Themi is probably the only Greek Orthodox priest we've ever had in the studio, so that was a bit unusual in itself.
Yeah, well, that is unique, but I tell you what, this guy is much more than just your average Orthodox priest. Check it out.
It's wonderful to welcome Reverend Themistocles. He is a Greek Orthodox priest, but maybe more importantly, he is an advocate for the poor, the oppressed, and those who most need the love of God in our world. Thanks so much for joining us.
No problem, James. Thanks for inviting me.
Now, you have a fascinating life story. You haven't always been a Christian.
No. It was somewhat in my 20s that I became a Christian, yeah.
But before you became a Christian, you were actually playing with the Flies, which is, for our international audience, it's an Australian rock band. You toured with the Stones, you toured with Roy Orbison, and I was watching a YouTube clip of you guys in your heyday. You were described as the wildest band the Compare had ever seen.
Yeah. I belong to that generation that was hit very hard by the Beatlemania event. Wild music, uninhibited, natural. It just felt as if it was natural. And that caught a whole generation of young Aussies. And I was one of the victims, so to speak.
But at the time, even though your parents had a Christian, they were Greek Orthodox.
Yes.
But you didn't buy into it. You didn't buy into Christianity at all.
There was several factors for that, James. One was that the the Orthodox Church at the time, back in the 60s and 70s, it was mostly a church of immigrants, for immigrants. But for a guy that grew up in Australia and who, you know, whose heroes were, you know, Bob Dylan and the Beatles and Mahatma Gandhi, that sort of didn't fit in, you see.
Right, sure. I can certainly understand that. What I don't understand is sometime along the way between you turning away from your faith, you got a hungering for Christ and you re-accepted Christ into your life.
That came sometime in my 20s, in my early 20s. In the meantime, what happened was, as a university student, okay, the Beatle thing came and left, and I formed a rock group, perhaps Australia's first long-haired group.
That's what I saw.
Yeah, Australia's first kind of new wave music, the music that, you know, was described as the British invasion music, you know, which swept America and swept us here. And so we provided that when the Beatles left, there had to be a local Beatle group, so we were the local Beatle group, you know, and we took over that sort of thing. But I, after 2 years, got sick and tired of imitating the Beatles, you know, and I decided to become myself. So I went back to university and just continued in my university studies. And there at university, the time of the Vietnam War, there was a great flowering of ideas at the time. From the New Left to Christianity, it's not really such a great ontological gap or leap. And so when you look at the Christian position, which is quite similar, concern for minorities, concern for the underprivileged, concern for the oppressed, it's identical. The big difference is God. The big difference is religion is not the opium of the masses of Marx's perspective, but in fact it is the liberating force of the masses. And so that need to readjust one's thoughts about the position of God is the leap forward from Marxism to Christianity.
Well, let me ask you this, because you went on, you studied at some of the Ivy League universities, Harvard, Princeton, and so forth, became a great scholar, but then you decided to make a leap. You left academia and started working for the dispossessed in Africa. Why?
Yeah. Well, the concentration was focused on academia. So it was certainly a strong faith in Christ, an unshakable faith in Christ, but it was also a faith, as it were, interpreted through academia. That's all very well and good, but then when I saw what Mother Teresa of Calcutta was doing, it just made me embarrassed to think that here is an elderly woman, you know, doing extraordinary work of the gospel work, true gospel work, you know. Chapter 25 of Matthew, I was poor, you came to me, I was hungry and you fed me. And it's interesting that Christ says, I was poor, I was hungry, you know, identifying himself, you know, in total solidarity with the oppressed and the and the hungry. In my 40s, late 40s, I decided, that's it, I'm going to Africa. And I was put into Kenya. So very soon after, I was thrust into a Mother Teresa apprenticeship. Yeah.
And you know, one thing that's really fascinating to me is you went into Sierra Leone. Now, for some of our viewers, they're going to know that Sierra Leone was part of a regional war that was incredibly vicious. Barbaric, probably
even worse than barbaric.
Probably some of the worst acts of anywhere in history.
Yeah.
How did you fare, and what did you do in those circumstances?
Well, the thing is that, you know, where the worst pain is, where the greatest poverty, that's where Christ is, right? So I decided suddenly I needed to be even closer to the crucified Christ, and this is a nation that was completely crucified. So I thought, this is where I belong.
What kind of work is the mission doing there?
One of the obvious things that happen in a war is people die. But the other thing that happens, people get arms chopped off and legs chopped off. And that's what happened. That's the signature of the Sierra Leonean Civil War, is the amputation of hands and legs by the rebel army as they came in to punish people for voting for the government. The result being, of course, homelessness, people just begging in the streets by the thousands.
Well, many people couldn't work, could they, I guess?
Right. Exactly. So how do you deal with that? Well, we sort of took some of them and put them into a shelter that we created a little bit out of Freetown, a place called Waterloo. So we built a lot of shelters for them. And then we had to feed them. So we have to make sure they're fed as best as we could. We get containers coming from overseas for us with rice and food supplies. So we give them that. And then we have to provide them with some kind of medical assistance. So we created a clinic for them where they get free medicine and free medical services for themselves. Then we had to create for their kids, because you could be disabled, but you still have children.
Sure.
Right? So now we provided education by on the ground there on that particular project at Waterloo. We built a school as well, and that school serves the needs of the children of those amputees and the polio victims and the beggars and so forth. So that's one aspect of the work we're doing.
How can they get? I mean, we're in Australia. Sierra Leone seems like a long way away.
It is a long way away.
How do we do it?
The best way is I would ask your viewers to Google in Paradise Kids #4, numeral 4, right. Africa.
And we'll put that address up on the screen so our viewers can see it.
And everything will come out there, and they will see how to go about it. There's all kinds of systems that these nice people have put for us. Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, listen, Themi, it's so good to have you on the show. You were once described as being part of the wildest rock band in Australia. I think now you're the wildest priest out there in Africa, but in the best of all possible ways. And it's just been a delight to talk with you.
Thank you, James. Thank you.
Wow, talk about epic.
Yeah.
A rock star, a successful scholar, and he's also this amazing missionary. We were talking about success before, Ken, and I think it's pretty clear what Reverend Themi sees as true success.
Oh, yeah, and it gets better, Dora, or worse in some ways, because you remember that Sierra Leone was one of those countries that was hit really hard by the Ebola virus during the last couple of years.
Yeah.
You know, thousands of people killed in Sierra Leone, and in some cases, sadly, orphans left behind.
Oh, of course. So Reverend Themi's charity is actually looking after more kids.
Yeah, that's right. He's still there, and he's still going strong. It's an incredible guy.
Love it. Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with us this week. We'll see you next time. God bless.
See ya.